All right. Greetings, all. It's Max. We're back. We're going to talk Matthew 5. Now, one of these guys following the law, calling themselves Christian. I call them Hebrew rooters, but this particular breed of them comes up about every 10 minutes, and what they're talking about is Matthew 5 as their justification for the Sabbath observance and dictating what sort of meats you can eat and your diet, and not having, wearing little cords, wearing gay little cords around their pants, growing beards, like this is making them more righteous, and this is the law that they're following the law. No. And if you want to teach stuff like that, or be involved in things like that, people are free to do whatever they want. But when you call yourself Christian, no, absolutely not. We're not playing that game. You don't get to call yourself Christian and then go worship Buddha. You don't get to call yourself Christian and go worship Muhammad. It's not how this works. Oh, but I'm just getting my stuff from the Bible. Well, you got to read it first. And you throw out New Testament, you want to throw out Paul and go back to the Hebrew Gospel of Matthew. The obvious forgery, as I covered in my last video. Okay, you want to go do that, you are not a Christian. Pure and simple. I don't know what that makes you. I guess you can create your own cult name. I don't care. And it's with this idea with the times now that if you find some secret information, or you think, secret occultic stuff, oh, NASA's a bunch of liars, and okay, and then this is a bunch of liars, and the government's really doing this, and look at all these secret projects, and you've got these old ancient Hebrew Zionist Jewish guys that say this, and this is the real truth, because, it all goes back to like Masonry and stuff. Which is why I call them Masons. It looks very Mason. I said CIA operative once, and then they really grabbed onto that to say, oh, he says we're CIA, ha ha ha. And it's like, no, you're Freemason. And I'll stick to that. I don't know. It just looks very suspicious when guys hang out at the Georgia Guidestones multiple times, not just to go check it out. They checked it out, come back again, and come back again. Very strange. And this doctrine here that they're teaching or preaching or whatever they're doing on their live streams, it seems like some of those things, I don't know if people aren't aware, but in Freemasonry, you, of course, have your different ranks and your different levels, whatever branch they are. There's like 150 different branches of Freemasonry. They all go up through Illuminati and all this stuff. And it's like, if you're not a level 33 degree, you're being told nonsense, gobbledygook, garbage. And that's to see if any of the nonsense they told you springs up anywhere in your community. They know who they can trust. It's just a recruitment ground for people who are sociopaths and psychopaths, okay, and who can keep their mouth shut. That's all. And this looks to me like something that was let out where somebody found it and they go, oh, well, it came from the Masons and this is the true stuff that they don't want anyone to know. And no, it's garbage. Very easily debunked by anybody who understands even the slightest bit of the New Testament. So the verse in contention, and this is also Matthew 5, is where they say that, oh, there's contradictions in the King James Bible, and we'll get into that. But first, we'll look at our contentious verse here. Matthew 5:18. For verily I say unto you, this is Jesus, till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till it all be fulfilled. And people are giving Jesus crap for doing things that appear to be against the law, against the Torah, and he is teaching things that aren't in the Torah. And so we were like, so is this a new deal? What's going on with the Torah? Are we still doing the Torah thing? What's up? And Jesus says, no. Till heaven and earth pass. Till heaven and earth, till it's all wiped out. not one jot or tittle shall pass from the law. Okay? So in these guys' minds, well, the heaven and earth is still here, so therefore we're still under the law. At the end, it says, till all be fulfilled. And if you don't understand how Jesus fulfilled the law, then you don't understand how Jesus is Christ, and you're not a Christian. Because what are you putting your faith and trust in according to the gospel? What are you actually putting your trust in Jesus if he's not the Christ? If he didn't fulfill the law, what does Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection have anything to do with you if you don't understand him fulfilling the law? So what I say is, like, the gospel, Brother Ed talks about this. The gospel is a fairly simple, straightforward concept, but there is no one line of scripture. There is no John 3:16 that's going to give you the entire gospel, because you have to understand who Jesus is, why he was important, what he did, okay, and what it means to you. You have to understand those things in order to actually understand and put your faith in the gospel. Otherwise, you're putting your faith in vainness. You're believing in vain because you don't even know. You say, believe in Jesus, you'll be saved. And you go, yeah, I believe Jesus existed. All right, I guess I'm saved. That's not the way it works. You got to understand you're a sinner and why you need Jesus and what he did. He fulfilled the law that Adam broke. Jesus is referred to as the second Adam. We'll take a look at the deeper aspects of Matthew 5. I'm going to kind of poke around and jump around a little bit. Matthew 5 starts out with the Sermon on the Mount. And we just read verse 18. Verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass away, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of the least commandments, and shall teach men to do so, he shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Well, let's look at some of these least commandments. Probably something like eating pork. Maybe that's a big one. I don't know. But we'll just say it's eating pork, be the least of a commandment. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments. So we'll say Peter is breaking one of these least commandments or something, and shall teach men to do so, he shall be called least in the kingdom. So Peter, at one point, wasn't eating with the Gentiles because they were eating some type of meat that was considered unclean. Okay, and Jesus says that it's not what you take in, it's what comes out of your mouth that makes you unclean. So then Jesus would be the one telling people, commanding to break the least of the commandments. You understand? So there must be something else going on here when you have Jesus sort of not obeying some of the commandments the way that, of course, the Pharisees and all those guys were doing, like working on the Sabbath day. So he's doing these things. So who are you going to trust? Okay, you're going to trust the Torah, where Jesus comes in and says, you guys are hypocrites and you have it all wrong. You're not understanding what I'm trying to bring forward. Or Jesus. And now these Hebrew rooters are going to do the same thing. They're like, well, Jesus says this and Jesus says that. And I'm like, yeah, well, you don't understand the Bible because you're lost. You're lost and in darkness. It's midnight over them guys' heads all the time. So we'll go to verse 20. For I say unto you, except that your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. Well, it's a contradiction. It's a contradiction in the Bible that says that, the law is no good, but then you need to be more righteous than the scribes and Pharisees. No, the scribes and Pharisees were pretending to do the law. Okay, so as far as people knew, they were doing the law. They're the example. Okay, these guys are paid by the rest of the Israelites to follow the law, so they could do sacrifices on behalf of the rest of the people. You understand? So even if they're a bunch of hypocrites and liars, they're still probably doing the law a bit better than your average Israelite guy out there. All right? Because it was their job. This is what these people were paid to do. And all Jesus is saying here is that nobody is going to heaven. Nobody. Nobody is filling the law. Nobody. That's the point of this statement. And then he gets into what he's really meaning about the law, which in effect is if you murder somebody, you're in danger of judgment. He also says if you think evilly against your brother or think wickedly against your brother, you're guilty of the same thing. So he's expanding on the fact that you're not keeping nothing. You're not keeping nothing. And you're a liar if you say you do keep the commandments. Agree with your adversary quickly here in verse 25. Verse 27, you have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever shall looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery already with her in his heart. Remember, if you break the least of the commandments, you're going to hell, right? Now your thoughts. Jesus is expounding on the law to say if you think about doing any of these things, you're going to hell. Because you have a whole bunch of Jewish people who think that they're keeping the law, and they go, well, I slipped up, but good thing I have the Levitical priests who can go in there and do a sacrifice for me. And here's Jesus saying, no, and you even think bad thoughts, you're damned. These are my favorite parts when people want to take things hyper literally in Matthew. Verse 29, if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out. Do we think that's how it works? For it is profitable that for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that the whole body should be cast into hell. And if your right hand offend thee, cut it off. So we want to go back to this time where you get caught stealing, you cut your hand off, and they go, well, there, now you're saved. Now you're a saved person because we cut off your offending hand. The people who don't understand anything, it's like the people who are pushing this doctrine, they just Googled a list of verses that support their opinion, and then that's all they know, and they've never read the actual chapter. Okay, that's kind of what it seems to me to be. Which is very disingenuous, very filthy liar, sack of crap, sort of a thing to do. Because obviously you come in with anything in the New Testament that completely blows the argument out, and it's, well, the New Testament's, people have retranslated it to say different things. You can't trust that. You can't trust the Apostle Paul, There's no winning it. And like I said, the only thing I care about is, fine, don't call yourself Christian. Make it very clear that you're not teaching Christianity. And then all is good in the world. Anyways, at the bottom here, we have, be therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. This is a commandment from Jesus Christ. So you're gonna follow that. You're gonna do that. And if you mess up even the slightest bit, you've lost heaven forever. So maybe, after reading through the rest of Matthew 5, maybe you want to re-examine this verse, Matthew 5:18, and go, till heaven and earth passed, one jot or one tittle shall no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Maybe we want to focus more on this till all be fulfilled, because right now everybody is going to hell, it kind of looks like. We probably should re-examine this to all be fulfilled, and what that actually means. But we have to use this terrible translation of the New Testament. We're going to go to Hebrews chapter 8. Okay. Sorry, my head's a little itchy. It's like 45 degrees out in Minnesota, and it's just almost June. It's ridiculous. Freezing. My sweatshirt on and my cap. And it's summertime. This is summertime in Minnesota. I think we're going to start verse 7. Verse 8. For finding fault with them, he saith, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel, with the house of Judah. So, the big contention here with Whitsitt and Jack is that there is no new covenant. Well, what's Paul talking about? There is no new covenant? Seems like there's a new covenant. Again, if you don't understand who Christ is, you're not a Christian. You cannot be a Christian. It is impossible to be a Christian without understanding what law Christ fulfilled, how he fulfilled it, what he did, and why it makes a difference to you, which would be the gospel. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them out by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. A new covenant, not according to the covenant. A new covenant, not according to the old covenant. Okay. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days. What days? The Old Testament days, before Christ. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts. And I will be to them, them a God, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities I will remember no more. And that he saith, A new covenant he hath made, the first old. How do we get that Old Testament, New Testament? Well, that must be some sort of weird gobbledygook translation thing that doesn't exist. All of the reasons you find out, like why is it called the New Testament and Old Testament? Why are these called, the law and the prophets, Moses and Elijah? Why are all these terms used? Why is a term used like lawsuit when you sue somebody? Because that comes back from the Bible. Okay? A lot of these terms and a lot of these things we use, they come from the King James Bible. All right? And this idea that a new covenant doesn't exist, well, what are we talking about here in the Bible? A new covenant, he hath made the first old. So if we have a New Testament, that must mean we call the Old Testament the Old Testament. How do we know it's a New Testament? Because by the death of the testator, a New Testament begins. Who is the testator? Jesus Christ. Oh, it looks like all this stuff is coming together. Imagine that. What did Jesus talk about? New covenant? A new covenant he hath made, the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. Until heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or one tittle in no wise will pass away, until all be fulfilled. So if Paul here is talking about now, which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away, talking about the Old Testament. The Old Testament is ready to go away because it has been fulfilled. It is a history book. It is a lesson in teaching people this is what God expects of you, and this is what it takes to be righteous. And there's no way you can keep it. And we're showing what happens when people try to keep it or pretend to keep it. They're all a bunch of hypocrites and liars. All right. Now we have a new covenant. Okay. This is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days. What days were that? The days of the Torah, the days of Moses. Saith the Lord, I will put my laws into their mind. Okay. We get the Holy Ghost. And write them in their hearts. And I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. Doesn't say anything here about Saturday worship, or what kind of foods you're supposed to eat, or how you're supposed to trim your beard, or anything like that. I don't know, the beard thing and the food thing wasn't written on my heart. So as you see, you go through scriptures just a tiny bit. All right, even just continuing this Matthew 5 thing. Verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth hath one jot or one tittle, no wise pass from the law. And that's supposed to be a proof text for following the Torah. Is like, did you not continue on 3 or 4 more verses where it tells you how you can't do the Torah? No, because they're novices. And this idea that maybe they think they're spreading truth or something like that. Maybe Whitsitt is really naive because he's a novice and doesn't know anything about anything. But I ain't buying that out of Jack. Not buying it out of that guy. And this is sort of a new breed of Hebrew rooting, as we call it. A new breed of Hebrew rooting, where we're going even deeper back into the Torah, but then still saying that we're saved by faith Christians. Now, how the heck does that even work? How is that? That's serving 2 masters completely. I mean, it's bad enough you got Christians out there in the Ruckman world who are saying, oh, yeah, you can be saved by works in a different dispensation. That's bad enough. You got Hebrew rooters that are saying, oh, you're always saved by works. Oh, but then if the faith is in, you got to know who Jesus Christ, but really it's the works. It's like, I don't know how people can get this messed up. Devil help or something, I guess. I don't know. It's not like this requires a doctorate in theology to pick apart this. This is very simple things that everyone can understand. And if you don't understand, again, I'm repeating. If you don't understand how Jesus Christ fulfilled the law, you don't understand your prophecies in the Old Testament and your Torah anyway, which is directly pointing to the cross, okay? You don't understand anything if you don't understand how Jesus fulfilled the law. And if you don't understand that, you are not a saved person. You are a lost person. Simple. You can't understand the gospel without understanding who Christ is and his character and why he came and why he died on the cross. I want to go briefly into Matthew 6 for the first couple of verses here, because it talks about charity. Take heed that you do not your alms before men. Okay, basically this is, you could think of like charity or your giving or your worshiping of God, okay? Take heed not to do your alms before men to be seen of him, otherwise you have no reward of your Father which is in heaven. It's an interesting thing. Therefore, when thou doest thine alms, do not sound a trumpet before thee, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. So this is the part that goes into, well, we're supposed to be more righteous than the Pharisees, but here he says that the Pharisees are hypocrites, and it's like, everybody is hypocrites. Everybody's liars. At some point in their life, they've told a lie. Everybody is a murderer. Everybody is an adulterer. All right? What this is specifically doing is don't try and puff yourself up with how righteous you are, because you're all a bunch of dirtbags, myself included. And if you're going to do something nice, Don't make a big deal out of it. Just do it. This is how you're supposed to act. You're supposed to have the spirit of giving and the spirit of goodness and the spirit of cheer. And if, somebody notices you doing it or something like that, hey, great. Good. Maybe they'll do something good too. Or maybe somebody like, the greatest example is like for saved people who are really in the Lord and doing good stuff. Typically their life is going to be better than most average people's. And they're not going to be stressed out about everything. And they're not going to be, doom and gloomers and naysayers for the most part. There's some that are out there, of course. And being a good example as a light to shine unto people. For them to look forward and follow. Because they say, hey, man, this guy really has his stuff together. Or they look like they're really doing well. Or they're always really happy. Or they're really constructive. Or, they seem like they're trying to do good things, right? Be a light to shine to follow. Okay. And it says in here, because Jesus continues on, that when you do that stuff, you should do it basically in secret. All right. That thine alms may be in secret, thy Father which seeth in secret himself shall reward thee openly. And then when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the streets, that they may be seen of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. So there you have it, as a commandment that will carry on, because this has nothing to do with the law. There is no law that says you can't pray in the street, making a spectacle of yourself, right? But these are things that are written on your heart. These are things that you don't want to be disingenuous or whatever. You don't want to be a hypocrite and a liar. It's like, I'm not going to do something just so I can show everybody how righteous I am. Yeah. And going on is like charity is the main commandment for the New Testament as far as for things to do. If you don't have any money, or you don't can't think of how you could really even help somebody out, sometimes even just being a part of like a Bible translation thing, or if you have time, if you don't have money, people have time to get involved in different things. Start a mirror YouTube channel where you're copying or re-uploading other people's stuff. Most Christian stuff is not any sort of a copyright thing in there, but there are things that people can do that is effectively charity. Spending time, writing comments on Christian channels and stuff to people who are talking nonsense is being charity. You're not getting paid to do that, right? And most people aren't trying to get social credits, right? You're not going to get any social credits by being a Christian these days. These are motivations for doing things. These are laws that are written on your heart. This is what Jesus was talking about when he says, I'm not here to fulfill the law. I'm here to make it a little worse for you guys. Saying that the motivation and the reasons, if you're following the law and your motivations for following that law is not because you love God or you want to be obedient to God, if your motivation for following that law is to be more righteous and pious than the next guy, okay, that's covetousness. Which the Jews have a huge problem with that in the Old Testament. Phenomenal problem with covetousness. Where the most obvious example is where the guy says, hey, Jesus, what do I need to be saved? And he goes, well, sell all your stuff and follow me. The guy's like, I don't want to do that. Right? Yeah. He says, oh, I've followed all the commandments. I've followed all of my commandments, right? You want to sell his stuff. He's covetousness. Yeah, I think that's about what we have for that. Going on in about a half hour. I really tried to set it up where I end at 33.33. That's my new thing now, to make some people happy over there in Sweden. But I guess we're not going to do it today. That's all right. So anyways, yeah, if anyone has any questions regarding what laws to keep and all this in the Hebrew roots thing, just go ahead and leave comments, and yeah, that's what we have with that. I think we pretty well covered it. That we're going to be out of here.